Well, another election, another new Prime Minister, another new cabinet, another new government. Has anything actually changed? Well, on paper it has, and I'm talking about manifestos here. Labour did promise for us EV owners that they would restore the 2030 ban. So we're going to have a look at what difference the change of government might make to the EV industry. This is not a political video. This is really having a look at the EV industry and what is likely to change. And I think there could be an awful lot of change. So let's start with that ban on the sale of new ICE cars by 2030. That was the original target agreed by everyone. Industry wasn't desperately supportive of it at the time. However, they accepted it. And a number of industries started to make the change based on that particular date, which was 2030. And they concentrated their efforts into hybrids. And that's fine. But what then happened when the Conservatives said, oh, no, we're not going to do it in 2030, we'll extend that to 2035, it left the industry in quite a bit of turmoil for two reasons. First of all, if you want to develop a new car of any sort, whether it's a petrol one or hybrid or EV or whatever, it can't be done overnight. It takes time to do it. And it can take time through the development, through the trial, the testing, ramping up, changing all the production and everything else. That process can be 2, 3 or 4 years quite easily. And so when this was suddenly announced, we're going to extend it another 5 years, it threw the industry into a bit of a problem. A lot of the new models that they'd been converting to, changing the factories over to, now they didn't have to make them anymore. And some of them decided, well, let's not make them. Let's go back again to where we were. So it wasn't so much the actual date, it was the change. And that's a cost to an industry. That if you decide to task your planning department with designing a new car and doing all the drawings and clay models and everything, that costs an awful lot of money. If you then find, actually, we don't need it for another 5 years, that model now won't be needed in 5 years after the original date. So it was a big, big disruptor to the industry. But it did something far worse, and what that was, it told the industry that if you shout loud enough, governments will back down. So why should we commit to any change at all? Let's just plod along as we are, and we'll raise a stink and shout and scream and bang our feet down, fists on the table, and hopefully we can just carry on making petrol cars for as long as we're working. And that's quite disrupting to an industry. It needs to have a bit of stability. So we're at the situation now where, just to bring you up to date, all cars with petrol engines of any sort, be they pure petrol, petrol hybrids, plug-in hybrids, pure hybrids, anything to do with petrol or diesel, will now be banned for the new sale from 2035. But one of the manifesto pledges of Labour was that they would reintroduce the 2030 ban on pure petrol and diesel engine cars. Now, let's just put this into context. 2035, that's 11 years away. This is not next week, next month or whatever. So for us buyers, we can go out tomorrow and buy whatever we want, or whatever we can afford, or whatever we choose to have. The industries need time. So in terms of petrol, at the moment, unless Labour changes it, you can buy a pure petrol car for the next 11 years. Now, the industry seems to have moved on. Petrol and diesel cars are in a terminal decline. Diesel is well down. That's virtually disappeared off, and it now represents about 3% of the entire market of new cars every single year. So it's virtually disappeared. And pure petrol cars are going the same way. We're seeing 5-10% reduction year on year of people buying them. And what they are buying instead, some people are buying EVs, but not huge numbers. But what people are buying instead are hybrids. So let's just go through the 4 types of vehicles that we have at the moment. I'm going to ignore hydrogen. There's only 2 for sale, and there's only a handful being sold of those. So let's ignore those for the moment. The first one is the electric vehicle. These are fully electric. They have no internal combustion engine, no petrol, no diesel, no fossil fuels of any sort in them. They have a battery and they have electric motors. In order to charge the battery, they need to be plugged in. They can be plugged into somewhere slow, like at home, or fast when you're out on the road, but they get all of their energy from being plugged into a charger. A hybrid electric vehicle is one which has both electricity and a petrol or sometimes diesel engine, although diesel is very much going out of fashion. So when you drive these, the energy that you gain from regenerative braking is used to charge the battery. And it is the only way of charging that battery. These cars do not plug in. They don't have the plug, and they don't need to be plugged in. The PHEV, which is the plug-in hybrid or the petrol hybrid electric vehicle, they have, again, both an engine and a motor. But while it can charge the battery through regenerative braking, it can also be plugged in. Again, it can be plugged in slowly at home. Some of them, but not many, can actually be plugged into a faster source, but they are very, very rare. So what you have with those is, with the hybrid electric vehicle, they tend to drive on petrol, apart from when they're at slow speeds or they're going short distances, and then the electricity will take over. But it's not sustainable. You can't do a long distance in them using pure electricity. They're quite small. Plug-in or the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, they can go much further distances. They again tend to use the batteries at slower speeds, but they can run for anything from about 10, 15, 20, some of them up to 30 or 40 miles. HEVs generally, it's just an assistance. It's down for a handful of miles. So they're the different types. And recently there's been a massive surge for the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and hybrid electric vehicles. And it's been sold by the industry as being more efficient, more economical, in other words, than a pure petrol or pure diesel version. So what has changed is the final category, which is pure petrol or pure diesel. These have no batteries, no electric motors in them whatsoever, apart from the battery to start the car. From 2035, you won't be able to buy anything other than a 100% electric vehicle. If Labour does reintroduce the 2030 ban on the sale of petrol or diesel-powered cars, new cars, then from 2030, 6 years from now, you will not be able to buy anything that runs only on petrol or only on diesel. But you will still be able to buy a hybrid electric vehicle or a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle or an EV. And then 5 years after that, the plug-in hybrids and the hybrid electric vehicles will just stop altogether. And the theory is by 2035, there will be no vehicles brand new offered for sale that have any sort of internal combustion fuel or power generated. Everything will be pure electric. The real problem for Legacy Auto is one of, what do they actually make? As a manufacturer, you can't sit back and wait for 2035 and throw everything today into EVs. There's a bit of a slowdown in EV sales, and not everyone likes or wants or thinks they need an EV. And so someone has got to be pretty brave to throw everything in and start making EVs. But what do? Do you go in for hybrids? Do you go in for plug-in hybrids? And if so, which is the one? What's the size? What's the size of the battery? And what do you need to do? Or do you say, well, actually, at the moment, we can make petrol engines for the next 11 years. Let's just stick with making petrol engines. This is a dilemma the Legacy Auto finds itself in at the moment. It's not a dilemma for someone like Tesla because they've never made anything else other than pure EVs. So for them, this is all really a bit it's a bit irrelevant. To them, it doesn't really matter whether the ban is 2030, 2035 or 2055. They make electric cars. They are selling pretty much as many as they make, and everything's rosy. They're making a nice profit. They seem to have got a good business model going. So there's a lot of confusion out there. Nobody really knows where they're going. What is the future? Is it hybrids? Is it plug-in hybrids? Is it pure EV? Can we go back to petrol? Can we spend the next 5 years making petrol and then switch to EVs? Or will we have missed the market? There's a massive amount of confusion, and this is really sad because it is actually destroying the industry. There's a huge amount of upheaval in the legacy auto industry. And until that's sorted out, we're not going to get very good cars. They're going to stick to what they know best. They're going to try and just keep on bumping extra products into it to make them more premium so they can charge even higher prices, and just hope that we keep on buying them. And what we want as a consumer is the very latest in technology. We want the latest, whether it's a hybrid or a petrol or an EV, we want the very latest. We don't want someone stuck in the mud trying to sell us something as 10 or 20 years out of date in development because they don't know what new thing to develop. So we'll see how this goes. But what will likely happen, the most likely outcome of all of this, is that the manufacturers will leave it too late. And by the time someone has decided what the absolute guarantee is for the future, that future will already be taken up by other companies around the world supplying that market already. And then they've got a transition period, which might take, as I've said earlier, 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they can start producing that in mass produced quantities. And by then they'll be so far behind the industry, they may as well not bother. And we saw this with mobile phones, with companies like Nokia, one time the largest company in the world for making phones, Motorola, a very similar company. And they just left it too late. And they totally missed out when the smartphone era began with a vengeance. They just dismissed it, weren't sure what to do. They thought they could keep their customers. They thought their customers would still want the old phones and not these modern smartphones. I mean, how can you operate a phone without a keypad? That's ridiculous. And who wants a computer in a phone? That's crazy. So I fear the legacy auto is heading that way. And it's going to take some real guts and some real courage for someone to say, right, this is what we're doing. So we're waiting now for Labour to tell us, are they going to change the law? If they are, the industry will go one way, but at last they'll have a bit of stability so they'll know where they stand. In other matters, Labour have said already that they want to reintroduce onshore wind farms. And that's a great move because they are by far the cheapest. These offshore ones, they are fantastic. They are hugely powerful. They have little impact on the way we live in the country. But they are very, very, very expensive to get the power back into the grid. And a lot of the ones we've actually got turning at the moment do not produce any power for the grid. They've not all been connected to the grid yet. And that's down to the cost and the availability of the connection to get them through to the grid. Bringing it onshore, it's really easy to connect a onshore wind farm into the national grid. And before anyone says it, the easiest way around this, and I will suggest this to Labour when I have a meeting with the local MP, and the easiest way around this is what they've done in several places. And it's really simple. And they say, if you live within sight of a wind turbine, you get free electricity. And all of a sudden, all the doubters, the haters and everything, they just disappear. Oh, I wish, cut those trees down. We want to be able to see that one so we can get free electricity. Yeah, we're so mercenary. We get on our high horse about something, but someone offers us a bit of money. Principles go out the window. So in terms of the power, I'm expecting to see a massive increase in the number of onshore wind farms, and that will actually boost the grid dramatically, which everyone tells us we desperately need. We don't. The grid is actually quite stable at the moment. The problem we have with the grid is it's too stable. They are not able to change it to provide localized power for EV charger installations at the sort of speed that we want. want, but they're going in all over the place. So the issue with the grid, it's not a capacity one. We've got loads of capacity. It's one of being able to get that capacity to where the charger installations need to be installed. Anyway, that's all for now. So thanks very much for listening. I hope that has been of interest to you. If you do like this, please press the like button. If you want to see more, then click the subscription, and we'll notify you if you click the notification bell every time we launch a video. And a big thank you, as always, to our Patreon members. Thanks for watching. I'm Dave.